can start, should I? Kevin, can you hear me? I just sent him a text.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order and want to welcome everyone to the Committee of Whole meeting for Monday, November 1st, 2021. And we're going to begin tonight's meeting with the acknowledgement of treaties of peace and friendship. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Wolastoqiyik, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Thank you. Well, we'll now do the reaffirmation of the oath of office. We do hereby accept the office of council and will diligently, faithfully, and impartially discharge to the best of our ability the duties of the office as imposed upon us by law. Do we have any additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda before we adopt it?
I have one addition, if I may, Your Worship.
Yes?
Under my heading, I guess, I'd like to add a discussion and information for council on a flooding problem at 4027 Main Street.
Okay, we will add that to the agenda. Any others?
I would like to add to schedule the next budget meeting. And the other thing is to discuss the meeting of January 4th, 2022.
Okay, that's another addition. Do we have any more additions or deletions? Okay, then can we get the motion to accept the adopted agenda?
I motion that the agenda be adopted as amended with changes.
The motion has been put forth by Councillor Guitar McDonald. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Second by Councillor Carmichael. On the question, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion adopted. Okay, next, I'm just gonna scroll down here. Okay, statements of conflict of interest. Does anyone need to acknowledge a conflict of interest for this meeting? No? Okay, we have no presentations, petitions, or delegations. Business, do we have any business arising from the minutes? Okay, we will move on to the presentation of council. Deputy Mayor Burke.
First item that I have has to do with a constituent calling me concerning the service that they are receiving at the SPCA. You know, the SPCA is an organization that everyone considers dear to their heart, and a very important one because it serves to the protection of the animals that we have, not only in our region, but everywhere. First of all, I certainly do want to stress that the SPCA plays a very important service and that type of thing. But I'm questioning the service that they are supplying to us, you know, and we are a contributor to the financial status of the SPCA and have been for an extremely long time. With that said, you know, this constituent mentioned to me that there was some cats, small cats that were in a building and, you know, that type of thing. And the homeowners had basically abandoned the building. They called the SPCA and, you know, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on that, but basically told them that, you know, it wasn't really their responsibility to come down here and get them cats. And when they said that maybe they'd call the RCMP, they were told, feel free to call the RCMP if you wish, you know. So, you know, I don't wish to go in names or anything like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say that at the public meeting in 2 weeks' time, there will be a motion on the table that will say that I would like to see a letter sent to the SPCA, maybe stressing the or requesting if Beldoon is a client or an important client in their financial status or not. I personally can sit here and say, you know, I have a personal interest, invested interest in the SPCA. My wife has been doing the bookstore, raising funds for the SPCA for the last 6 years. And she's been involved in that for probably the last 10 years. So with that said, it's not a question that, that you know, I don't believe in the SPCA. But I do believe that they have an obligation to supply a service to the village of Beldoon. So the motion will be asking the CAO to forward a letter to the chairman of the board, who is Pat Harris, or Pam Harris, I believe. Pam Harris, And we will ask that the letter just ask for some explanation as to how service in Beldoon will be in the future, and making them aware that, you know, we need to be sure that the service we're paying for is the service we're receiving. I know for a fact that we're not getting 65 calls a day going up to the SPCA. You know, half a dozen calls a year shouldn't be that much of a problem to service. They have vehicles up there, they have people up there who are designed and designated to look after these problems. So I'd just like to have, you know, bring that forward and make the SPCA recognize that we are very, very concerned and very interested in making sure that the animals that are to be serviced in the village of Beldoon are being serviced by the SPCA properly. Okay, so the next item is, has to do with the snow removal contract that that has been,
Deputy Mayor Burke,
oh, excuse me,
I'm just going to allow if any council members would like to respond.
certainly.
And would any council members like to respond? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the second item, it has to do with the snow removal contract. You know, everything is moving ahead, maybe not as quickly as I'd like to see it, but we are making headway. I apologize to council, you know, for the not receiving the contract was sent to our legal counsel, and just to show you, I received the email November 1st, today, 3:43 p.m. So I do have a copy of the contract. I will forward a copy to all of council to be able to have a look at that prior to the public meeting in 2 weeks' time. It has some, you know, all the details, I believe, that we requested, and is a very positive document. It will be requesting, you know, that the contractors each sign a different contract, because it will outline which streets they are going to be responsible for. So I think once you've had a chance to read it, you'll be able to see that it seems pretty advanced, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, you know, we are reaching the end of November, so we need to put this in place sooner than later. But I will wait for council to be able to have a look at it, and maybe at the public meeting, if you have recommendations, I mean, we can tweak it at that time. But with that said, I also apologize for it being late. The one thing I do want to respond to, as far as the contract is concerned, Councillor Carmichael gave me 5 questions that she was interested in having some answers to, so I will answer those questions now, if I may, publicly. One of the questions was, if there is an accident, who will be responsible? Contract outlines that very clearly, and hopefully you'll be satisfied with the answer on that, and we can take it from there. But the village is covered, because they need to place the village as a third party on their insurance, so everything is in place to guard against that. There are 2 contractors that will have less roads. Are they okay with that? I did not evaluate that way. I tried to make it that, you know, everybody had a section and looked after it. You know, as you are aware, we are strictly on a trial basis for 2022. I mean, we may need to do something in December of this year, but 2022 for sure, January, February into March. You know, it's hard to just try to make sure everybody gets the same amount of kilometers, but at the end of the day, you know, we're going to deal with that way. The program has been sent out. I believe that council has had a copy of that, and I've shown the mileage, and I believe that's where the question comes from. But the other side of the coin is that basically leads me to question 3 of your request. You mentioned that one contractor has a smaller tractor or smaller blower than the rest, you know, and you're absolutely correct. That may take him a little longer to do a few less kilometers. So it may all wash out in the run. He's not being paid by the kilometer, being paid by the hours, so by the hour. And contract states it clearly that they're no more than 5 hours each time they're called out. So I believe that'll take care of any issues and any backlog. You requested about the budget. Is it still $10,000? With that said, you're asking me if I can cap it. If I may, I'll prepare council for when we do the budget. I will be requesting that the budget be $20,000. But at the end of the day, I am comfortable in the estimated costs of between, 14 to 17,000. So, but the request will be for $20,000 to put it there. 10,000 is really at the bare bone. But the other side of the coin is I am extremely comfortable at 20,000. So the request will be for 20,000. And the last question is this a pilot project? And I can assure you it is. This year will be whether we continue the program or not. So with that said, that's as much as I want to cover on the snowplow contract. I assure you by tomorrow you will have a copy of the contract on your computers, and I will forward it to you each to have a look at it at your leisure.
Okay, we'll open the floor for questions or comments.
Thank you, Ron, for all that information. I appreciate it. I was okay. I hope it was okay for me to ask you all those questions because I want more clarity. So I gave you that, I think, at the regular meeting, but thank you for that information.
Well, and just to comment on that, at the time, I did not have all of those answers, but they kind of fell into place as I became more involved. The contract is very straightforward, but it's going to be a contract per contractor. It's not one contract fits all. It's going to be one for each, and that type of thing. So it's the same contract, but it's each contractor will be named. So, okay.
Any others? Yep.
I was just wondering if you had considered in the contract, a similar contract to when somebody pays a contractor to open their driveway for the winter, how it's a set price for the season?
I'm sorry, I can't quite hear you.
I was just wondering if you had considered setting up the contract so that it would be a set price for the season, similar to what is done like with driveways, and maybe you had discussed it and it wasn't an option, or?
In all honesty, the answer to that is no, I did not consider that proposal at all. At the end of the day, I did have a conversation about paying by the kilometer because that's how the village of Beldoon pays. But I'm trying to find the simplest way to try to, say, control this. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not sure if this is the simplest way. As I've said time and again, we're trying it for two. It has been a major problem in our community for a long time. This council has seen fit to try to deal with that problem, and I believe that the product will be well worth the people's being able to get out and move around after a major storm. But with that said, at this stage, I'm not sure what's the easiest way, what is the most efficient way, but I've chosen to go this way. And I certainly would not say it's the only way. I'm going to say that we got to go. We got to choose a way to go, and this is the way I chose to present it. So once we're more aware of what the problems are and where the snags are and how it works out, maybe next year we can look at a different proposal. But I'm hoping that council will look at this. There's been a lot of time and effort into this, and we'll see where it goes. But I can assure council that a request for a recommendation for a motion will be on the public meeting in 2 weeks' time.
Any others?
I know I'm not supposed to ask two questions, but we're doing a section of road right now on Ocean Drive, and that is costing us, I believe, $7,000, but I know that would be on every storm, and that's why so I'm just wondering the numbers and so on. So That's the only thing. I'm just hoping that the $20,000 can cover it if it's a trial period and so on, so.
Well, I did speak to a contractor, and I asked the question, a blower that size, can you travel blowing snow at least 5 kilometers an hour? Now, we can almost walk 5 kilometers an hour. With that said, he said, yes, but they said, well, sometime, I said, no. I says, I understand sometimes you go out and then you need to cut that bank and you need to cut this bank and that takes time. I said, this is not what this contract will say. It says it right in the contract, 1 cut up the street, 1 cut down. Simple as that. So, I did look at Ocean View. You're absolutely correct. I believe that's somewhere in the $16,000 or $18,000 range, but that's all the maintenance. Whether there's 1 inch of snow or a foot of snow, they're out. They also have to put sand and gravel and that type of thing. This contract doesn't call for that.
Okay. One of the things I think too is going to be helpful, and those good questions, when we want to ask questions, right? I think when we get into the committee structure, because we'll all be sort of in the room at the same time, getting that information, then when we have something like this, we'll be able to deal with that, at the same time, right? So that's good. That's going to be another positive, I think, of that, is that we're going to be sharing information as it's coming. So I think that's a positive. Okay, next item?
Just for me, I just want a few things that I'd like to share with the public, and it's just to make it public that, on the 18th of October, we had a meeting with Glencore, and Glencore discussed the decommissioning of the premises. Apparently, that's going to begin in the spring, and they have assured us that it will be environmentally friendly when completed. So that's the high and low of it. I also had a meeting with the Port of Beldoon, and there at that meeting, I discussed the RCMP services that they received to see, what they do there. We did discuss Glencore and what was going on there. I did mention to them about the signage that we had discussed here and how they feel about that, because I remember a previous council had the same approach of building a sign there. And the Port of Beldoon mind you, it had a different CAO than today, but they had said that the signage, they went through a lot of trouble to get the port sign there, and they wanted to leave it there and things like that. But the other side of the coin is that said that they would be open to having, if we put a sign there, they certainly would be open to putting their signage in it. Also mentioned about the presentation that the Port of Beldoon did for council, and that how much it was appreciated by council. The information was greatly appreciated. And the last comment on that I wish to make is that it was mentioned to me that the port was doing testing on noise in and around the port underwater. And I see in the Telegraph Journal here earlier this week that there was an article in there talking about the effects that noise has on the marine life around the port, and they are doing a study on that, and I think the port deserves to be commended for their interest and the time and efforts that they're putting into those type of things, because all of these type of things are important, to maintain the life underwater. So they, in my opinion, they deserve to be commended for doing such things and following up on that. There was also a fire committee which council all attended, and the fire committee was very well done. And the last thing I want to mention was the training that we received over the weekend from Jack Novak. Jack Novak brought a tremendous amount of information to all of council. Being an expert in his field, he certainly is a very knowledgeable person and has supplied a tremendous amount of information for council and where we're going and how we will develop our future. So I just wanted to publicly thank Jack for his efforts and the time that he spends with us and the information he brings.
Any questions, comments? Okay, next one.
Okay, the last item for me is, there is a constituent in our community, and it is James Dempsey. I'm not going to hide that issue. James Dempsey actually called me concerning flooding that is going on right outside his door. If you're aware of where he lives, he's only separated from the street by the length of the sidewalk. His front door comes right out on, almost onto the sidewalk. So what transpired there over the years, prior to him being a resident, there was a manhole put there in front, right in front of his door, it's on the street, but it's right at the curb. Well, that manhole, was put in there, and it's professionally done. So at the end of the day, so I went down to look at that manhole. That manhole takes water that flows down from, say, from the direction of the church coming towards his residence. But there is also a manhole 50 feet prior to his house, and there is also a manhole 50 feet after his house. That manhole is connected by pipes underground that are 6 feet under. And when water goes into those manholes, it flows freely from the, say, where the church is to past his building. However, the manhole that is in front of his house is maybe 2 feet deep. And there is a pipe that's maybe a foot under. When you lift the grate of that manhole, the pipe is right there. What is happening at his residence is excess water that does not make the first manhole is going into that manhole. Well, that manhole doesn't drain anywhere. The pipe in that hole is only a foot and a half long, which means that the water going into that pipe is now draining basically into the ground. And that ground is right beside or underneath his driveway. Well, that ground is being corroded away, and his driveway is starting to sink. So and then his property is a little bit lower, so that water is kind of absorbing into his property. So my point to all this is to give you the information. What I would like to see, and I'm asking council or advising that there will be a motion at the next public meeting, asking for an independent engineer. And the reason I ask for an independent engineer is because the engineer who did that, Roy Consultants, it's pretty difficult to ask Roy Consultants to come and check on their work. So I'd like to have an independent engineer come in and evaluate whether that problem is a village problem or is it a constituent problem. And there will be a motion making that request at the next public meeting.
Okay, any questions or comments by members of council?
When did Roy's consultant do their evaluation on this? Do we know?
I'm not sure of the exact date, but they've been there 3 times, and each time they've come back and said it's not the fault of the village. I've explained that, former council was explained it, so that's what I base my decisions on when I speak with this resident. And I have no problem getting, if that's what council wishes, to get an independent engineering firm to go take a look. I have no problem whatsoever doing that.
Any other comments by council members? I'll just add something to that. This is an issue that's, we were talked about and discussed last term. And like my opinion about this, just a personal opinion, is that sometimes it's nice to have some fresh eyes and some fresh perspective on an issue. Sometimes it's helpful if so I think it might be something to seriously consider. allowing, you know, an independent or new set of eyes to sort of come in and take a look at that issue and see, right? Might not. So that's just sometimes a fresh perspective is all you need to sort of solve an issue, and it's been one that's been around for a while. So it'd be nice to be able to get it settled in a positive way. Is that it, Deputy Mayor Burke?
It is. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Carmichael.
My first one is the Municipal Masterclass webinar by George B. Cuff, orientation, on the November 29th, and it's about the government orientation and good governance. I had said I was interested. I don't know if anybody else is interested, or I don't know if anybody thinks that, you know, that it's valuable. I feel anything we can learn, it helps us. There's a cost to it, so I don't know if anybody else is interested or want to do that. So I just want throwing that out on the table for today.
Any comments, any observations on that? Personally think it's always good when someone wants to take training, and I would have no problem supporting that at all.
So I'll put it on the next, for a motion. Okay, and if anybody else wants to attend, they're able to.
Is that it, Councillor Carmichael?
No, I also have the schedule. We need to schedule the next budget meeting. We need to have our budget in before November 15th. We are the first. I know there's certain information that the clerk treasurer is waiting for, but I think we need to schedule one, well, it'll be before the 15th, because that's when our next meeting is. So I think we're going to have to set a date perhaps tonight. So whoever has a date in mind can just throw one out there. Maybe we could have one, next, well, we have something the 3rd, possibly the 5th. We only have the 2nd this week. So what date would everybody else be available?
How many more sessions do you think we'll need to wrap it up? 2?
We definitely need one more session. I do need some information, feedback from council on some issues that has been submitted, I believe, by CAO Ferguson. And then we would need to have a special meeting to adopt it.
Okay. So if it's yeah, we've got 2 weeks to do this. You know, maybe, what was the first date you're looking at, Councillor Carmichael? Did you have one in mind?
Well, we have a event committee meeting on the 8th, which is already on the messenger, perhaps the 9th or 10th, because the 11th is Remembrance Day.
Because we could do once we get it done, we could do a quick special meeting, right, to accept it. So it's the next meeting, that's really probably the longer one. So you want to do that then, go to the 9th? No, does anyone have a conflict that they know of for November 9th? Okay, so let's schedule November 9th, and then we'll if we need be, we'll schedule a quick emergency meeting or special meeting to adopt.
And the 3rd one is the January 4th meeting. Did anybody have any questions? At 6:30, yes, 6:30, okay with everybody? My 3rd one is to discuss the January 4th, 2022. The staff, the office here is closed between Christmas and New Year's, so they won't have any time to do the agenda for the meeting. The staff only comes in the following Tuesday, which I believe is the 4th or the 5th. So I was wondering, we're probably going to have to schedule the regular meeting, or committee of whole meeting on the following Monday, and I'll let the event committee know so they can swap their meeting. I already spoke to the event committee chair. So if we can put that on the agenda at the committee of whole to change that meeting to have it at the following. if everybody's okay with that, it's just because I know that the CAO and clerk treasurer needs to prepare the agenda, and they won't be here the previous week to do so.
Everyone on council okay with that? Okay, so we'll do that.
Can you add that also for the, at the regular meeting to reschedule that meeting? Thank you.
Council, before we move on, there were two items I wanted to add, and I was sort of playing with the laptops here, so I didn't get them on. But one was one that CEO Ferguson wanted to ask us to discuss. He's gonna leave the room, and we could discuss it, if that's okay with everyone. I could add that. And the second was, this afternoon, we met with AJN, and I'd like to give council an update. Oh, you have that? Okay, so that's taken care of then. So it's just the other one that CEO Ferguson asked to discuss. Okay. Councillor Guitar McDonnell.
Okay, I just want to give some updates, especially about the calendar. So far, we've received 92 photos for the calendar for 2022. 59 of them are summer photos, 15 are fall, 11 are winter, and 7 are spring. The deadline is this Friday. We posted that to make sure if anybody has any they want to submit, to continue to do so. The selection will be made on November 8th. And so right after that, the selection being done, it will go into the production, and that's going to take 3 weeks. So those calendars will be available probably the first week of December to be mailed out amongst residents, and then the leftovers will be available for sale for $10. So that's the update on the calendar.
Excuse me, Marilyn? Are you, how are you going to pick the photos? Is there votes on the event committee?
Well, when we meet on Monday for that meeting, my understanding is we're going to go over them for sure, and there will be probably 8 of us there. Everyone's welcome to come if they want to have input. Okay, that meeting is Monday at 7 p.m. at the Rec Center. If you want to have input, please come, because I'm sure it's not going to be easy because we have some beautiful photos. The food service handling course has been set up. The total cost for 3 individuals was $103.33. It's a 6-hour online course. So that's been taken care of. Brenda and Daryl have done that. Let me see what else. So that was the update that I had. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to anything on there?
Anyone have any questions for Councillor Guitar McDonnell on those updates? No? Okay, all good, can move on.
Okay, the next one I just wanted to discuss was the rental units in this building. Would it be up to council to vote on who has the rights to rent them? Or is that something that maybe should be done through administration? That was just a question that I was thinking, you know, why would we have the final say in someone who wants to put a business in here?
Council want to maybe add some comments, and then maybe CEO Ferguson, and then I'll end up with some things. Any council members on that? CEO Ferguson, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that? Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I just wanted to say that agree with that I don't think it's something that should have to come back to council every time. We have a building here that was purposely renovated in order to rent space, and I don't think it should be treated any differently than when space wants to be rented at the fire hall or the rec center or the old fire hall, you know, so I think that and I do believe that there was policy made, if I'm not mistaken, as to what the rent would be, and what, you know, what the procedure would be, so I think it needs to be followed, and I think we need to get some people in this building and get some businesses here.
Anyone else?
I also agree that it should be decided through the administration, because, you know, if 2 or 3 people want a building, then, you know, you pick what's the best fit for a building. It shouldn't make a difference who they are or whatever, but I think that we should rent out. And also that comes up with are you talking also the cafe? Because we need to discuss that also before any decisions are made.
I would also, I think that's the right approach. I think the CAO needs to be, we're paying him or her to do the job, and I think that's where it should stay. That way, we are not having any biased decisions being made, and I think that decisions will be made on a business decision other than personal. So I think that's where it belongs, with the CAO.
I'll just add to that by saying, I think one thing we learned this weekend, right, was that, we need to depend on our administration more, right? And we have to trust the judgment of the people that we put in place. So, when the committee structure goes forward, whatever committee that's under, and we're all gonna sort of be a part of it, but there will be a chairperson. Once we go along the lines and people and businesses show interest, and then we start going on the line and have discussion. And then, once we decide that's important for us to have entities in our building, then, if everything we've heard this weekend is we're gonna follow that, it's like, then, okay, administration, you know what we want, help us make it happen, right? And then I think we have to rely on the judgment of the people that we have working with us and for us. I think everybody agrees with that, right? So, and that's gonna take, it'll take a lot, we'll still be doing the work, but it'll take, so much of what we said doesn't work for us. I think this is gonna really work, right, this process. So, anyway, I agree with everyone here. I think that's the proper way to go. Okay, are you finished?
No, I have one more. This is-
Could I speak to that?
Oh, sorry.
I have no problem with taking after that. Just with regards to the cafe, there was a big difference in opinions of councillors with regards to the RFP and the terms for the rental. It's a very, if you want me to just follow what the original one was, where there's no, see, therein lies the problem, because you're giving away your cafe for basically nothing for the first year. If that's what you want to do, to fill it, that's good with me.
Well, I have no problem commenting on that statement. When the Village of Beldoon is in business to compete against independent entrepreneurs, I have a major problem with that. That contract does not say one word about them having to pay taxes, doesn't say one word about them paying electricity, doesn't say one word about, the equipment. They come in here and they're gonna walk in here and have all of brand new, state-of-the-art equipment. And then we have people outside who are taxpayers, who are building businesses, need to purchase the equipment on their own, and we're here giving it out free of charge because I'm going to say it, because a mistake was made that a cafe went in there in the first place. At the end of the day, I have never been in favor of the cafe, and my solution, if in all honesty, I would be more in favor of auctioning off the equipment there and having that area up for rent in other ways. But with that said, that's my opinion, and I've stated it.
Well, one thing too, I think we also have to be, respectful of differing opinions, right? Because we've had a lot of differing opinions on this, and that's one opinion, and I respect that, and we have to respect others as well. Councilor Kerry, did you want to, yeah, because I thought I saw you. So.
I just wanted to say that, I look at it differently. I look at it as we have food services space available, and the person, trying to build the business, as you're saying, would have just as much right as to rent that space as what anybody else would. I just feel that, for one, I don't even think we should be referring to it as a cafe. I think it should be a food service space for rent. I don't think that we should be dictating what goes in there in the sense. It's a space for rent, no different than the space that the company I work for rents. There was policy put in place for the size, so I don't know, like, if you want to take that into consideration and go by this, you know, it's a similar rate because it's of the square footage, or, I mean, because I feel like people are being penalized because the village put the equipment in, because somebody could have rented that space and put their own equipment in, but, you know, the equipment's already there now, so I feel like it's worth a shot to try to get a food service industry in there. If in the long run it doesn't work out, well, we have a rec center that has equipment that needs to be upgraded, you know, as well as other areas that the equipment could be used. So I just think that would be an option as well. But I do think that in this community, we are lacking, you know, like, if a company comes here, they have to leave our village to have a lunch meeting. So I just think it's worth trying to get something in there.
Appreciate that. That's a differing point of view, and, right, and that's one of the things, and that's why this weekend, I mean, I came away this weekend so optimistic, is that when we have our committees, those discussions, right, are gonna be had, and people in the same room at the same time can make their points, and you know, the word compromise is always, to me, is such an important word, right? And so I think we're gonna be able to come to something that we as a council feel comfortable with in terms of that space, right? So,
Your worship, if I could make a suggestion, that myself and perhaps Brenda, she's very busy right now with budget and stuff, but I can get a couple hours out of her, could sit down and maybe tweak it a little bit, because I have asked a company to come in and put in a separate electrical unit, which would tell how much electricity is being used, because I think they should be paying for some of that stuff. So we're gonna tweak it, we'll bring it back. We'll probably by the next, or I will, or whatever, and we'll have it for the next meeting for you, so that you can take a look at it, and then if you like it, or maybe just give me some, if I have it ready before that, I'll send it out to you. And then maybe you could send some suggestions back, and then I'll bring a final copy in. And this is one of those things that I think we learned from Mr. Novak this weekend. We can't let things go on forever. A decision has to be made, right or wrong, I think, and because I'm left in limbo too. And then I come to these meetings and I feel like I haven't got the stuff done. Well, I can't do anything if I don't have the direction. So I'll come forward with what I think is to be a fair. It's definitely not going to be the same as renting in Bathurst or something like that, but it's got to be. It has to be somewhat fair to the village as well, so I'll get that ready for you as soon as I can.
is everyone on council comfortable with that approach?
Yes, I'm very comfortable with that. I think we need to stop, like, stalling on things and moving forward with it. And I think over the weekend, we came up with a lot of positive and a good foundation, and I think we're going to grow together, and we're going to work better together also. So, yes, thank you, Scott. I know we're sending you a lot of mixed feelings, a lot of little emails and on the side, but thank you for putting up with all of us.
That's, I think, what, you know, that was kind of the message that Jack sent, is that really that's what we're supposed to do, right? And we don't want to overburden anybody. At the same time, you know, that's kind of where we have to be doing it, right? We have to burden you. We're sorry about that, but that's sort of what we have to do. But we won't overburden you. Okay.
But I just have one more for him to take care of. I had a request from a couple of residents, and I know that you've been working on the signs for the roads, for the speed limit, CAO, Scott. Is there any way that we could talk to them also about putting some type of warning signs up around that turn in Lower Beldoon between Curry Drive and Hudgens Road? Everybody knows that turn in the winter. And
Yes,
there's hidden driveways there. Is there like warning signs that we can put there for people to slow down?
It's simply a request to DTI. We are in charge of the signs that go, we have the responsibility of the signs, the same as we had for the crosswalk. That's one of those things that runs underneath the municipalities.
Right.
what their responsibilities are. Need to inform most times, but I'll be in touch with Mr. Caron tomorrow anyway about the other signs and stuff, so, I'll certainly look into that as well.
Yeah, there's a concern because of the traveling, you know, that corner, and,
I don't think it'll be a big deal, but I'll
Yeah,
double
we
check.
need-
You have to double check with them anyway, but
Okay.
if we decide, then that's what we'll do.
perfect,
Okay?
thank you.
There's also a passing sign on that area too that is also a concern. And if you're going any speed and if you're meeting any of those transports that's coming out of the sawmill, it is a concern. Because I know I've driven that road for years and it's a very dangerous area to travel, especially on blackouts.
That's a different
So-
issue, though, that would definitely be going into, and we have a presentation next week from Mr. Sullivan, our engineer for the roads, who did the thing, he can probably answer that question for us. But when you change from passing to not passing and stuff like that, that goes to them. So but I will look into it.
Can I ask too, while we're on the topic of signage, there is a child that resides in the town site who is deaf. And I'm wondering what the process would be to get a sign put in there like that, you know, that there's a deaf child that may be at play. I'm wondering who we would speak with in regards to that.
C.O. Ferguson, would you have any idea?
No, but I'll look into it. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. C.O. Ferguson, we'll save your, the additional item till the end.
Sure.
So let's
Um,
start with this.
First of all, the residents on 719 Newell Road. I was instructed by council to go get some fixes for that, for the issue that this resident has at his house. And I will remind you again, the engineering firm, you may want to go get another one, but the engineering firm definitely has said that it is not the fault of the village. There was no passage that was changed or drain direction that was changed or none of it. And he has that report, it's been delivered twice. But anyway, if you have two options to look at for a fix for that, and one is basically going in and clearing out stuff that was there, and if you look at the notes from the engineer, it includes lowering and upsizing the existing culvert on Newell, and approximately 300 meters of ditching to lower brook channel. Rock excavation quantities were assumed, so that means that they gotta put that gray rock or whatever that they have in there, which is part of that process. Legal surveys and legal fees for work on private property is not included in what you have up here. So if your price is 108,000, you need to add on to that legal fees and things that are on that, and that could run. They don't know how much, but it's, you're looking at another probably $5,000 to $10,000. The above assumes minimal DFO requirements for fish habitat for any in-stream work. Okay, because you always have to go to the Department of Fisheries when you're dealing with that stuff. So that you're going to have to do what they call a WAWA for that. So that will take some time as well. I'm still waiting for the one for the gazebo on the Jacket River, and I applied for that probably a month and a half ago, and I haven't received anything on that yet, so it does take some time for that. So that's the first option, and the second option is, well, you all saw them, you can see the work that has to get done for the second one, where it's going to be running a drainage system all through private property and then underneath the road, going across to the other side. So, and that one's more expensive. It includes installation of a new storm sewer system to divert the water from offtake between resident 1716 and 1698 Newell and send it to the other culvert on the other side. And it's just a lot more work, and it's very expensive. So I leave it to council to make a decision as to where you want to go with this.
Okay, any comments?
Yes, I'm just wondering, like, so I'm trying to read these designs, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, but so both of these would entail making a ditch or clearing out an existing brook that runs between the two properties? I'm just wondering, why would it not be an option to continue the ditch running across like, in front of the houses and around the turn? Because from what I'm seeing, like, you can see in one resident's ditch, there is cattails growing, and in the other resident's ditch, there's no water at all. Like, so it just, it's like the resident to the right is, their ditch is too high for the water to continue to flow, which is why it's backing up between the two properties.
I really can't answer that question. I'm not an expert in
Okay.
ditches or
Well, I'd
whatever,
like-
but I leave it to those people and
I'd like to suggest then maybe getting that same independent study done on this as well then.
I do have a comment, Your Worship, if I may. What I'd like to bring to the table is maybe a little bit of background that council probably is not aware of. This type of stuff, we're not setting any precedent with it. If I recall that several places, for example, right as you enter into into Lower Beldoon from Greenpoint, at one time, the water was flowing right over the road there, and it was because the pipe was too small. They installed 2 pipes there, so that solved that problem. There was also a time where, when they clear cut where the sawmill is, because there was not enough forestry there, it increased the water flow around Curry and down that way. And we had a resident that was basically having a tremendous amount of water going through their property. The village went in and fixed that issue, and it wasn't cheap. If my memory serves me correctly, it was probably $80,000 to fix that. There was also another incident where up on Gagnon, where right across from the Irving, the water flows downhill to the Irving and then passes through a pipe underground to the other side of the road so that it could make it to the Bay of Chaleur. But that water was flooding a resident on the other side of the road because the ditch wouldn't flow. And then when you got down closer to the Bay of Chaleur, there was an individual who had a cottage right by the beach, and the water was flowing so fast there that when it got to his property, it cut the property in 2, and the water flow, for example, at the beginning of the property was probably 3 feet deep, but by the time it got to where it was pouring onto the beach, it probably was 15 feet deep. The village went in there and fixed that problem too. We piped it all, and I believe that fix was around $30,000. And then there was some water flow that was happening up on the Doyleville Road. The water was flowing right across the Doyleville Road, and council had to go in there and fix that, and it was an expenditure, I believe, of around $140,000 to fix that one. So my point to all of this is basically that we do have spots in our community that cause us some tremendous water flows. If we ignore them, they will only get worse, and the problems will only get worse. So my point is that, sometimes we need to deal with some of these things, and it's not always pleasant, but by the same token, we have people who live in this community and are having major water problems. And I won't speak for all the members of council, but I will speak for myself. If I had to come up with $80,000 or $100,000 to fix a water problem, I'd be upset. So with that said, I believe that if any taxpayer who in the community would recognize that if they had issues of that nature, they would recognize that it's probably something that we do as a community and as people living in Beldoon. So I'm just throwing that out there for your information and your train of thought.
Okay, any other council members wish to address?
I'll just say this, I agree with Councilor Carrier. I think I think maybe we need to look at other engineering options. And looking at Roy's Consultants, and in two places, they're saying it's no fault of the property owners. It seems to be issues happening around them that are causing flooding on their property. I'm not in love with the proposal that they put forth, just because it didn't work on Burrito Lane, it didn't work on, I want to say in front of Randy's house, I'm not sure what, I don't want to say the wrong property, but they've done it twice in the village already. I just think maybe we could have somebody else look at that and possibly propose something different.
Okay, yeah, go
I,
ahead.
I would support that also, Your Worship.
Okay, so is that the directive that we give? Okay, so C.O. Ferguson, okay. Thank you, council. Next.
Okay, well, I don't know if council has noticed, but I'm pretty sure you have, or anybody else that's in this building. If you have to use your cell phone, which we did here tonight when we had problems with YouTube, and we had to go outside to talk to the person who's trying to help us fix the YouTube situation. There is an issue with lack of cell phone service. So I got in contact with the person who's our technology guy that we deal with all the time, and he suggested that we get some boosters with regards to this, and which would help. Certainly would be, you'd be able to use your cell phone. We have instances where we have to go in the back to work on some of the stuff in the back room here, and you have to be in charge, you have to be talking to the technician, Brenda and Nicole, and they have to come back when they're in there. They have to go way outside to talk to them and then go back in again and try to fix the wire that might be in. Anyway, so it is a bit of a nightmare here with regards to that stuff. And also, if our phone service does go down and it's a storm or something, and cell service might be very helpful in that situation. So I did go out, and you can see what I sent in your packages. We have we have two parts of it. What we did was we broke the building down in two sections. We have the section that's over here and over there, down the hall. Is one, and then the rest of it is the office space in this area on this side. So you can see the two proposals. They're not really, we thought that they were going to be a lot more expensive, but they're not. So what they're going to do is build towers. So I don't know if you have to bring that to a motion for next week, or we can just go ahead and do it. It's under, because you can do it in two phases too. You could do one this year, maybe one the next year, but that also takes away from your rentals that you have down the hall, who also need proper cell phone. It depends what kind of day it is, though. If it's nice out, you might get lucky, but, I mean, we do have the RCMP building down there. We have the gym. If 911 needs to be called, if something happens in there or whatever. So I think it's important that the building that you have, since you spent the amount of money that you did in the beginning, to spend another $6,000-7,000 so that you can have proper cell phone service, I think it would be a good thing. My recommendation to get that fixed.
Any council members' comments?
I agree.
I'll
Yeah.
give you a call on that, CA.
Okay, so, but maybe, go forward with maybe getting in touch with people. We'll make a motion too at the same time. Just
Okay,
just cover all the bases.
if we need a motion that's gonna put us to next week,
Is this, so this is something you want to take care of, like,
well, if you want it before the spring, it has to be
Yeah.
done within the next 2 weeks.
okay,
So,
so,
because they don't go up on the roofs and yeah.
so can,
But we can wait till then too, it doesn't matter to me.
can we give a directive then that maybe to go ahead with that, and we'll deal with a motion at a later point?
Okay. So we can make a motion next week, now I can start the process.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My next item is DTI summer maintenance, and I know you've been waiting for me for this since I brought in the crack filler machine for Cameron. They don't move very quickly. I've sent 3 emails now, and and finally I sent the fourth one. well, three emails and a call, and I spoke with them today, and what I got was, it's on our agenda to talk about, but the head guy for DTI in this area said, you may want to be careful. He said, call me tomorrow, because once you get rid of your summer maintenance, it's gone for good. So that's a warning that I have with regards to, and do you understand what I mean by that? That's it. You won't be getting any work done around at all for you. The village would then be responsible from here on in to do the summer maintenance. So I think what I will do is wait for my conversation with him tomorrow, and I'll send an email, and I would appreciate a yes or no answer on that, if you want to go ahead with this or you don't want to go ahead with it. If he tells us that we won't be able to get our summer maintenance back, and we're doing that to purchase the crack filler, we'd have to question whether that would be something that would be worth it. So I can send that to you tomorrow, and I don't know if I'm allowed to have a yes or no and go ahead with that, but
It might be actually worthy just to go around for just a brief comment from, if any council member had a brief comment on that, even right now.
I
it
would,
might be-
personally, I would be concerned if we would lose our summer maintenance. I mean, I don't think that would be a good thing, to be honest. I'm not in favor of that at all.
Any other council member with a comment?
Yeah, I have no problem making comment. I've been on 4 different councils now. I have no hesitation in saying, without any reservations, they have never given us the $64,000 or $68,000 worth of value that they charge on our budget. I have no hesitation in saying that I do believe that our crew could do the job as well, maybe even better, and probably sooner. You know, there's no sense filling cracks in September, you know, throwing asphalt on the ground in September. You know, with that said, I wouldn't have any hesitation to say that if we can drop the summer program without affecting our winter program, I would be in favor of dropping it.
Your worship, I don't think it's going to affect our winter program. That's something that I'll find out for sure tomorrow, but he said, you know, if you still want winter program, you want to keep that, you're going to keep it.
And and again, to diversify, and both make sense. You know, sometimes, you know, as long as it doesn't interfere with our winter maintenance, right? And even in terms of our relationship, right? But I think both are good points. We probably aren't getting the service that we pay for. On the other hand, you know, it's a nice group to be on good terms with. So, yeah.
Are they also responsible for painting the roads as well, like the lines on the road? They're not responsible for that? The summer DTI program? Okay.
I would like to know what they do for us in the summer before we decide on that.
Surprise.
Yeah. No, but you know, to get a list of the jobs they are doing before we can make a reasonable decision on that. And, you know, we're already doing the side roads for the department, or talking about doing the side roads in the winter, so, you know, I just want to know what we would be losing by letting them go for that 68,000.
Do we know of any municipalities who have dropped their summertime program?
I'm sure the list is big, but what gets done, and I was up here every morning this summer, and I really didn't see very many DTI trucks doing any work around here. And I asked them to fix the guardrails that were really out of place, and that didn't get done. I asked them they had put in Jacket River Bridge 2 years ago, I think, all along the side. They put in a barrier of hay with the black stuff around it, and they didn't bother to come back and take that out. So, and then I wanted to get it removed, and our crew had to do it. So there's probably a list which I will get you, but this, 64,000 is a lot.
And also indicate what our crew can and cannot do also, because, you know, there's, might be work that our crew cannot do.
The feeling I got too when I talked to this person was that it was almost an insult to them. So that's when his worship speaks about the relationships, that's, you know, because if you especially need them more in the wintertime and you don't want to, I mean, hopefully that they would be professional enough, and I'm sure they are, but the relationship with them is important too. But I'll check out what they do in the summertime, and I'll get back to you, and then you guys can let me know.
Do we let them know what we need done in the summer? Like, do we give them a report of things that we would like to see them do? And if they don't follow up, are they
No,
held
they have
accountable?
guidelines that they set what they do. Cleaning things and painting things and fixing broken things, and they're supposed to actually cut around their signs and stuff like that too, which we end up doing. But I'll send you the list, but I don't, only 2 times I have asked them for anything they didn't get done, so.
So what kind of a timeline are you looking at, like you would want to, or what kind of a timeline?
Well, it's a
are they
budget,
looking
it's a budget issue for us, because Brenda would have to know if we're gonna pay them or
Okay.
not, so.
So
So we're looking at like this week.
this week?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe when that email comes out, maybe give it some more thought, and then get back to the CEO Ferguson with your final answer type deal. Okay,
AGN, I'll tell you what we know. We don't know everything. We had a meeting today with the people from AJN, and as well as Mr. Dubé, who presented to you earlier in the year. Mr. Ahmed was here and his family. It was a very positive meeting. They were here to discuss their finances with ACOA and with BNB, and some of those things are going well, some are not. That's all I can tell you on that. It's a kind of a private matter or whatever, but they're here with that. They're very, very enthusiastic. In fact, they told us that if they didn't get some funding that they thought they were going to get, that they were going to be going ahead anyway. You know, that's the impression that the mayor and I got at the meeting. They've been in contact with Training New Brunswick to get people trained for this type of job. They're still talking about the job fair. They wanted to find out where it's going to be. That's probably going to be in, what did he say, Your Worship? January? January. Like they're put back sometime, obviously, but you know, we have to have faith that they're continuing on. I know they are, because they've got all the engineering work done, the civil engineering work done for their property. They're excited. They're here today also looking at land, because they plan on building homes for their workers. What they're going to be doing is, this is their plan, is that they're beginning to train some of their people that are going to be the main ones that are here. There's probably, I think he said 10, 15, and they will be the ones who work and train the people who will be hired on here, starting with about 75, I think, and with the goal to reach, she said, up to 200 or something like that. But so what they're looking at the properties, one of the properties is which you had brought forward on Jacket River Drive, and also another property up by the Jacket River, which is not one of ours, but it's a private one up by the Beldoon River, and another one that's right by the tracks past Jacket River Drive, where the track crosses the road right there. That's another piece of municipal property. There's some issues there too, which to get into it is difficult and whatever, but they're looking around at that stuff today. They're very excited about it. And we will be in contact with them again, but that's, you know, we can't really ask them when you're building or whatever. We just, you know, bottom line is they're going to have a deadline at some point with ACOA, and then we also have to think as a council that, or you do, how long do we let it go before we can put that piece of property up for sale with the work that was put into it by your council, your mayor and council here. So that's where we stand on that, and I really don't have any other information except for that.
I'll just add a little bit to it before, see if council wants to ask questions, or this weekend, I'll try to put a detailed email together for you, what, sort of give you some more meat as to what the meeting was, how it went. But also, I know they're sending, because deadlines perhaps have passed, you know, they're sending sort of a list of requests. I want to see if we can get you guys CC'd on that, so you'll know exactly sort of where they're at, right? So, and if there is another opportunity to either meet with any of the owners or managers, I'm gonna ask them if it's a good time for me to meet with council, because I don't think this council is that, we did when we were on the last council, but you haven't. So maybe it's time for everyone in the room to be able to meet with someone there and ask some questions. So it's a process moving forward, and I'll try to get you that email to sort of detail. It was a short meeting, but it was pretty packed with information, so. Okay.
And it's Mr., just if I could go back to my last one for a second, Your Worship, the one on the summer maintenance. I did send the email, and I have it here for me. It's just, I had written an email to him that I said I've inquired a few times about the village canceling summer maintenance, but keeping the winter, blah, blah, blah. And then his response around 5 o'clock was it would be sent to Daniel LeBlanc. Keep in mind that once you revert to this, the department will never go back to do it. This is a final demand. So just think about that when you're making your decision. I don't know. The last one is Main Street, speed reduction and sign change. I'll give you the speed reduction one first. I think I did inform council a little bit, but the public may want to know because it was a motion. The speed reduction is, the process is that you have to make a request for that, you have to have an engineering firm do a study on it, and the previous council, I think, approved that. When it was done this summer, or maybe it was this council, I'm not sure. That was sent to DTI, and the application was started with that, so I'm waiting for their recommendation with regards to that. I do have Mr. Sullivan coming in next week, the author of the study. It was a 4-day study on Main Street, and so he'll come in because it's mumbo jumbo, I think, for some people, including myself. So he will give us the layman's term on that, Cole's Notes version, and tell us why I talked to him, and he believes it probably won't go through, but he said it's worth a try. So that's where that stands. The signage, I'm in the process right now of, there's one being designed. There's only so many companies that can do that, and so there's one being designed for the front here. I'm definitely not going to approve it. It'll come back to council, and you can take a look at it, and we'll figure out that one. With regards to the other signs, there's an issue with some of those. Some of them are on our property, some of them are not on our property. Some have paid to have them put there, and some have not. On Wednesday night, we're meeting with the Planning Commission and Mr. Fournette and a few others. So at that point, he said he'd have probably something for me, because they were going to go laser the land or figure out whose property some were on. But there's definitely some that we can take down right now. So I plan on doing that as well. The last thing, if I could, before we go to the flag half-mast, just with regards to the unsafe properties, I forgot to add that to my list, but I would like to inform you that the first step has been put in motion for those. All the properties that received, that the fire department put on their list will have the first step taken, and that is a formal letter from the planning department stating that their residence has been deemed unsafe is what we're basically going with first, because that's the more important one. So that's the first thing. And I can tell you that they told us at the meeting that that process could last a year and a half before you get one down. That's how long it takes. which I knew it was 6 to 8 months back in the day when I was on, but they said a year and a half from start to finish. So we get going right now, and we might be able to get it. And the idea is, by sending those letters, he said sometimes the residents do, at that point, clean them up and fix them up. So that's our main goal, is to make things that are clean and make the village safer and nicer. The last one I have is, and first of all, I'd like to apologize with regards to putting the flags back up. I had driven up and down, and I saw that most communities had put them back up on the 30th of September. And ours had been down, and there had been some questions from the fire department about, well, how do we recognize our... So anyway, I sent out an email, and I only got one response. So I took it in my own hands to put them up that day. So then I said, well, we'll go to council and make a decision, and I'm fine with whatever council decides to do with that. It's no disrespect to anybody, and feel that if it's your wish to do that, that's your decision. So I'll leave it in your hands.
So, yeah, and that's, it's an issue that's, you sort of want to space special attention to, and to sort of discuss for sure. I'm just wondering what would be the best way to approach, is tonight the place to have that discussion, do you think? Or should we sort of maybe send an email with our thoughts to CEO Ferguson as to what we think on this? Or how would you like to approach that? Do you want to have that discussion this evening, or do you want to do it in conjunction with CEO Ferguson through emails, et cetera, before we make a final decision? Just wondering how council wants to approach the decision to keep either the flags at half-mast or put them at full-mast, or do we do some sort of hybrid, or where in some places they're at full and some places they're at half? Or how exactly does council want to approach that?
I'd make a statement on that, if I may, Your Worship. I believe Baldoon has demonstrated that we are an extremely unique community when we had the flag-raising ceremony here around the end of September. There were not many communities that went through that process, but we did. And I believe that we have demonstrated for example, to Chief Richardson, that we are here to respect and honor our Indigenous people. With that said, there are 2 or 3 things that cross my mind. We raise, for example, the Canada flag and the New Brunswick flag, and ran the Indigenous flag at half-mast. That may be a solution. I would highly suggest that maybe the answer may be to touch base with Chief Richardson and ask for some guidance as to how to best show the respect that the village of Baldoon has earned with our Indigenous people. That's just my train of thought.
Okay. I would kind of suggest, if we do that, we should also reach out to Chief LeBillois. So we would have, both First Nations. Anyone else want to comment on that, on sort of how we approach? That's a comment by Deputy Mayor Burke. Does anyone else?
I agree with Deputy Mayor Burke. To do maybe the 2, like to reach out to the chiefs but to maybe bring up our Canada and New Brunswick and leave the other one down. It's not, whether the flags are up or down, it doesn't take away from what happened to these children and these innocent people. We're all hurting, and that's not going to take that away. So whether the sign is up or down, but if they feel that they should be down, when you reach out the chiefs, I will agree with that.
Anyone else?
I understand what you're both saying. It just seems odd to me that we would have to reach out to the chiefs of our First Nations community to say, should we still be paying respect to the not dozens, but thousands of children who died in residential. So it just seems like an odd question to reach out to them for. It's, to me, it just seems odd, like, and it's an extraordinary situation. It costs us nothing to lower the flags. And I think they should remain lowered.
Any other comments?
I'm just wondering,
Sorry.
sorry, are we required, because right now we have the New Brunswick, the Canada, and the Indigenous, we don't have the Beldoon one up, and I'm just wondering, are we required to have the Canada and, New Brunswick flag on the poles? I'm just wondering if we could, in some way, like, keep the Indigenous flag lowered. I'm in agreement with that. My only concern is not even, it's just that if something like what we had happened, there was a firefighter that had passed away, and we were not able to use that as a way to show our respect to the firefighter's family. So I'd like to, in some way, be able to continue to show our respect and our grief and, understanding of what's going on in the Indigenous and in Canada of what's happened, but still have an option to be able to, show our respect for our local community members as well.
One suggestion that was made, and it was made by Chief Legacy himself, was perhaps to raise the flags at the fire station so that if they have a member who passed away or a member that they wanted to show, that they could put the half-mast down there, and then the other places would have half-mast. Does that compromise sort of work, or is that not enough? Just, that was a suggestion he made, because he did raise the fact that there were a couple of times that they wanted to show respect to a fallen firefighter, and they didn't have a chance to do that because the flags were already at half. That was his suggestion. He said that would perhaps work. Any thoughts on that, or any thoughts at all?
My concern with that, and I guess maybe it's, okay, so my grandfather was the first mayor in Beldoon, and when he passed away, my sister and I contacted the mayor at the time and asked if they would lower the flag for him, and they did, and it meant the world to us. And so I guess by doing it at the fire department would be a great way to honor and respect our firefighters, but at the same time, if, Lord forbid, something was to happen that we were to lose a past mayor or a past, village employee, something along those lines, I would just like to be able to have a way to be able to show our respect here at the municipal building. So I'd just like to keep that in mind as well.
How about we put some more thought into, okay, go ahead, Council.
I was going to say, I agree with keeping the Indigenous flag half-mast. That should be constant. The other flags, I believe, can be risen up, because that just focuses, it puts more focus on what it represents, in my mind. Okay?
You want to, perhaps we give a little bit more,
Just a general comment, maybe we could ask the CAO to find out what Ottawa is doing with the Canadian flag and what Fredericton is doing with the New Brunswick flag. The Indigenous flag, I would believe, is our choice to do with as we see fit. But with that said, maybe the province and the federal government is whatever they're doing, I don't know at this moment in time.
Well, I received an email from Councillor Robinson that explained that in Ottawa, they are all at half-mast. That was a promise by Prime Minister Trudeau. In Fredericton, I believe they're not at half-mast anymore. And there's not a community around in the North Shore that are. Doesn't mean that you can't be, but I'm just telling you what other communities have done.
and the only other thing I was thinking was, and I'm sure that the other communities have thought about that too, is if the flags are at full mast, and then next week, another story comes out about a residential school, and they go down, then time goes by, and they go back up, and then time, so it's just a thought, right? But let's do that, maybe yeah, sure, go ahead.
I just had one quick suggestion too. Right now, the Indigenous flag is on the side. I'm wondering what your thoughts would be if we were to put that Indigenous flag in the center and keep it at half-mast and have the, we're not allowed? Oh, okay, okay. All right.
But I see where you're going with that. Okay, you want to perhaps maybe we would just give this a little bit more thought, a little bit more discussion among council members? And then, because everyone's heart's in the right place, right? We just, so we'll keep the discussion going and see where we go from there. This is where you. So, CEO Ferguson. Oh, yeah, okay.
And mine was just quickly, it was on the Chalor Bay Watershed Group where the request had come in for a representative, council representative. It was on the last agenda with a motion, but it didn't get moved, so it's kind of sitting there with no decision or no directive. So I just wanted to know if council was going to consider appointing a representative or not, because we would need some directive to at least let the Chalor Bay Watershed Group know whether we are going to appoint or not as a council, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add to that because last Tuesday, there was a service commission and there was a presenter from the watershed, okay, group. Yeah, there are only two municipalities that don't have a representative. That's us and Migido. And I told them at the time, I said, we're working on our committees and we're gonna, we're working on them, so we're gonna get them straightened out. But this is one that I think that they're anxious to fill. Is there any council member who would be willing to put their name forward to act as a council? I believe, now, does this have to be, can a council member, clerk treasurer, do you remember if a council member can sit on this or if they have to sit on this?
Oh, I'm sorry, I believe in the request that we're making, they are looking for a council member. I believe that's their interest, is to have a council member.
And the only reason I ask that is because I think our last representative was not a council member. But if a council member would be interested in working, it's an interesting committee, it's an important committee. Do you know if there's remuneration associated with that, or is that volunteer?
I don't believe there's remuneration for that one, but if a council member was to sit on it, because most of the meetings, I believe, are outside the municipality, then their mileage would be covered for that attending that meeting.
And you're probably talking about quarterly meetings, so you'd probably be talking, I'm not saying that with any certainty, but most of them are like four times a year. So would any council member at this point be interested, or do you just want to think about it?
I would be interested in that committee.
Councilor Robinson would be interested in that committee. Is there anyone else interested in that committee? Okay, so, and it's yeah, and they get that a lot, but it's an important one, but it's, yeah.
Just for the record, if Councilor Robinson hadn't spoke up, I would have looked at that. But with that said, it is my privilege to allow Councilor Robinson to be our representative.
Okay, so there'll be there'll be a motion then to put that forward. And that'll be good. We'll have one vacancy filled there. Thank you, CEO Ferguson. So the last one is, CEO Ferguson asked me if I would bring this forward to council. Presently, he doesn't get paid for mileage. It's not part of the initial contract. And he's put on quite a few kilometers. He told me the exact amount. I forget the exact amount, but you can inquire as to how many he has if you want to ask. But he's basically asked us to consider amending the contract so that he would be paid for mileage. And my sense, the only thing I can add to that is that my sense is that, if the indication from the weekend was that, you know, he'll probably be here at least until the end of February, that's my guess. I don't think he wants to go beyond that, but it doesn't sound like we'll have a permanent CEO till about end of January, middle of February. So that's probably gonna add a month's worth to his mileage. So I didn't make any promises. I didn't give any indication one way or the other how I felt. I said this is a matter for council to decide and that I would bring it to council. So any thoughts or, yeah.
To be completely honest, I would not see a problem giving him mileage, to be honest. I mean, he's come in and he's done the job beyond my expectations. So I think it's deserving.
Thank you. Any other council members want to comment on that? And you can reserve comment or reserve judgment, but I would agree with you on that too. I think, but if any other councilors wish to comment or make a suggestion, you're welcome to.
I just have a question, like, are you talking like to include mileage, like for him traveling from Bathurst to Beldoon? Well, I just need to say that, like, I've traveled from Lorne to Bathurst for much less money, and I was not paid my mileage, and that's not to take away from the job that he's doing. I think he's doing a great job. I have a lot of respect for him, but I do feel that his wage reflects, or you know, for the running that he would be doing within the village, and I mean, he knew where the job was located when he took it, which, you know, so I don't know. I'll give it some thought though.
Any other?
Just to put it out there, I would estimate we're looking at about 60 kilometers, which would be 120 kilometers a day. If this vehicle's doing 10 kilometers to the liter, we're looking at 12 liters of gas. 12 liters of gas at today's price is costing him basically $16, $17 a day to travel back and forth. That's just the simple math. So do it by the week, by the month. At the end of the month, he spent a lot of money traveling.
Any other council members?
This is a hard decision, but yes, I've traveled to Bathurst for 9 years from Archibald. It's from here to Van Nuys, 55 kilometers one way, 110 a day, and it was on my dollar, and I was making less money than that. And I know the cost of traveling, and so I would have a hard time. I'd have to think about it, but I'd have a hard time. He's valuable, he's a good worker, and I have, like, that is not the problem. It's just that, you know, like Christy said, he knew where the job was when he said yes to it. So, you know, it's difficult. I didn't have an option. I was transferred and I had to go.
Councilor Robinson, I guess you're the.
Yeah, I guess it's easy to say he knew what the job was, but he was started at the lowest pay rate, right? Like he didn't start at the same rate of pay, I think, as the other CAOs. I don't know, I don't think I would have an issue with allowing him mileage just based on the quality of work that he's provided for us, and I don't know, I think probably he's earned a bit of that.
Okay. This week, maybe I'll get back to council members to see if we can do a final, right? It sounds like everybody's made a discussion tonight. I think going by tonight's, what I've heard from council members is that, you know, there's enough to say that they would approve. So are we okay with that? I mean, this would take a motion of council. I believe it would take a motion of council, would it not, Clerk Treasurer Cormier?
I would say under the circumstances, because you do have that contract in place with him for that position, it's probably best to do it by motion because it wasn't included in there. Although we did pay mileage, not for traveling back and forth to the previous CAO, but for any mileage he accumulated going out and doing business for the village, like, that was paid extra beyond his salary as well.
My sense is that it probably would take a motion. I think, I believe I've mentioned that to him, that too would take motion. So perhaps at the next meeting, the next regular meeting, that'll be a motion, and council will have a couple of weeks.
Just another train of thought I'd like to throw out there. If he's traveling 120 kilometers a day, or if I use 100 kilometers a day for the round figure, I believe the provincial mileage rate is 45 cents a kilometer. 45 cents a kilometer at 100 kilometers. We're going to pay him $45 a day for mileage.
That's your suggestion?
No, I'm saying I find that extravagant. So I can understand that he, at the end of the day, he has an expense there, but I would feel. Here's how I'm going to say this: we have a policy in place now that I believe that where lunch can be paid for traveling by a counselor if they are out of town for business, and I believe that indemnity for lunch is $20 a day or $22 a day. I haven't looked at it recently, so I don't know what it is.
Yeah, there's a mixture there, the policy, like some of it because of per diem. It depends if you're getting paid a per diem, whether you get your meals paid, or if it's just if you're going for a meal, it's usually with a receipt up to a maximum of a certain amount.
Yeah.
For breakfast, dinner, and lunch, it's all separate in the
Well,
policy.
he wouldn't need a receipt. There's a part in the indemnity, I'm not sure what the figure is, but here's my point. If we were to award him an indemnity of lunch, and I believe it's somewhere around $22 a day, that would be compensation for his gas. So,
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can find a middle ground somewhere where, I guess.
I'm just throwing out the ideas
Yeah.
out there, because I do find it extravagant if we're gonna pay by the kilometer, and I mean, I can't help the numbers are what they are. But to say if he's spending, as I said, $15, $17 a day on gas, and he were to be compensated, where he doesn't necessarily, council would approve a daily luncheon indemnity of the $22 or whatever it is. At the end of the day, that seems a little more reasonable than paying, per kilometer. I mean, I believe he probably still claims mileage if he's doing business in the village, is he not?
He hasn't put any
Hasn't
claim for
put any
any
in?
village,
Okay.
for any mileage at all. So,
Okay.
as you're saying, I wouldn't, just a recommendation, I wouldn't mark it down for a lunch if it's not. If you still have the right to make a motion to say we will pay $20, for example, a day towards the offset of travel costs.
Okay.
You wouldn't have to associate with a
Okay.
lunch. You could still
Yeah.
say, doesn't mean you have to pay by the kilometer. Council has the option again to say we can give a flat rate per day. And then if you want to pay kilometerage for the internal travels that's done, where he travels around, which he has quite a bit, like to go here and there to check jobs out, then he could keep a logbook for that, like the rest of the employees,
Yeah.
and then that's paid by. Those are the options council would have, but I would keep it all towards the mileage thing if that's what you're looking to compensate
Yeah.
for. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so so the sense I'm getting is that, we can help, right? We can offset some of the costs. We're not willing to go full bore, but, we'll be considerate in some way of trying to help in some way. Is that okay, or?
I was just gonna suggest that why would we not offset the cost of the traveling he does for his job, not the cost of him traveling to his job and from his job to go home. I think that would be a lot more reasonable. I think that, I mean, the people who live in Beldoon, that is what we've had to do. Always, we've had, you know, if our kids want to stay after school for something in high school, we have to travel them. That's part of living in Beldoon. And I think that for the taxpayers to be paying somebody from Bathurst, paying their traveling to come to a job that we're providing them and paying them very well for is kind of a slap in the face when you consider that a lot of our residents are traveling the same distance for a minimum wage job in some cases. So I think that we really need to consider that. So I think, like I said, if it's mileage pertaining to his job, that he has to go out of, you know, Beldoon for something on business, I think that's one thing, but to be providing compensation for him to get to and from his job, I think that would be unfair to the people who live here and have been doing this for years.
How about this? Why don't I, you know, if council would give me the chance to sit and talk with CO Ferguson, tell him how we feel, right? Tell him how the general sense that we have, and then perhaps, you know, through that conversation, we could he would have an understanding that, you know, you know, he did accept the job. At the same point, we understand that, you know, especially he does a lot of traveling within the village, et cetera. So perhaps there's some way to offset some costs there, right? So we'll do what we can. We'll try and help in some way, but we're not committed to a full cost. Let's put it that way. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah, he can only watch this YouTube video and he knows exactly what we said anyway.
Okay. Oh, and the last thing, before I forget, speaking of committees, when I was at the Service Commission last week, the Mayor Pédichet told me that they are going to try and they're looking at supporting, and there's already sort of a committee together trying to get bike trails from Bathurst to Beldoon. They're bike trails that if down Caracat, they're famous for their bike trails and everybody bikes, and they're doing it in Bathurst. But the Mayor Pédichet is working hard to make it a Beldoon to Bathurst trail too. There's a committee for that. Would anyone be interested on sitting on that committee? It would just be trying to get funding for trails, et cetera. I can get some information from her. In fact, I asked today all the information of what it would entail, how many meetings, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But that's basically, they're looking for someone in the village on council to sit on that committee. And and their aim is to bring the same quality and kind of bike trails that they have in the Acadian coast up here. So would you consider that? When I get the information from her, I'll send it out to you. And if it interests you, and if not, maybe I'll ask her if we can go to the community. Maybe there's a biking enthusiast out there who would be interested in sitting on some sort of committee. But that was the question that she had asked me. So.
I was just going to suggest if she is open to having somebody from the community, Ronnie Dempsey, who is running the Power Club, he bikes from Mitchell down here, and he's somebody who would be, I think, a good person to have on that committee. And it would kind of go with you know, the Power Club. It's you know, so that could be an option.
And it could, and some of these committees, like, you know, if they're not gonna remunerate, you know, some small stipend, like, we could give someone, say, you know, be on the committee, like that, that's gonna help us, and we wouldn't mind, you know, giving you gas mileage or whatever. But it's nice to have people on these committees, right? It's nice to have a voice in these committees, and the bike trails, if you've seen some of them, they're fantastic. And we talk about tourism, that would be really helpful, I think. So I'll get more information from her and get it to you. So with that, I guess we're ready to, yeah, we're ready to adjourn. So if I could get a motion to adjourn.
I move that the meeting has been adjourned at 8:45.
Okay, could I get a seconder?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, council. Thank you, everyone, for watching.